For 500 years, Koreans have known exactly what death looks like when it arrives. He wears a black hat, he carries your name in red ink, and he is never, ever late. Somewhere in Korea, centuries before anyone had a word for Grim Reaper, people already knew that someone was coming for them. They called him Jeoseung Saja, which translates, plainly enough, as the messenger from the other world. He carries no scythe. He wears no hood stitched from bone. In the oldest descriptions, he does not even hurry. Instead, he wears a gat, a wide flat hat woven from black horsehair, the kind Korean men wore during the Joseon dynasty. Beneath it hangs a long black robe, cut in the style a government official might have worn 500 years ago. That single detail is the key to understanding him. He is not a monster in the way we usually mean the word. He is a bureaucrat, a civil servant of the afterlife, dispatched from an office that no living person has ever been permitted to see. In the old paintings he carries a scroll, and written on that scroll, in red ink, is one name, yours, if it is your day. When the name is read aloud 3 times, the matter is settled. There is no appeal, no bargaining, and no delay. You simply walk out with him, and the door of the house you knew stays open behind you. But here's the strange part, the detail that surprises almost everyone the first time they hear this story properly. He is not cruel. In most versions, he is not even evil. He is performing a duty that somebody, somewhere, has to perform. Somewhere between a funeral director and a very serious mailman, he arrives, reads the name, and then he waits. For hundreds of years, Korean grandmothers passed this figure down to children in the last quiet hour before sleep. Half a warning, half a lullaby. Behave yourself. He is always watching. He never sleeps. That is the version that survived in the villages, in the ghost stories, and in the space between a candle and the dark. So we begin with a folk figure who is patient, formal, and unavoidable. The question is how he reached the modern world. By the 1980s, Korean television had found him again, and it gave the old messenger a thoroughly modern upgrade. Suddenly he was no longer only a tale whispered in a farmhouse kitchen. He was prime time in millions of living rooms. Dramas traded the horsehair hat for a sharp black suit and a long coat, and set him walking through ordinary city streets. Sometimes he was genuinely frightening, a still shape standing at the far end of a hospital corridor at 3 a.m. And sometimes, far more surprisingly, he was charming. Occasionally, he was even a little tragic, cursed with an eternity of collecting souls he never asked to collect, and never once allowed to put the work down. That is what separates the Korean messenger from nearly every other figure of death in world folklore. The Western Grim Reaper is mostly silence and dread, a shape, an absence, a sentence delivered without a voice. The Korean version has a personality, and a personality can be argued with, pitied, or badly misunderstood. He can be stern. He can also be oddly polite, almost apologetic, as though the paperwork itself embarrasses him. In some stories, he shows mercy, letting a soul linger just long enough to say one last unfinished thing. In others, he is simply exhausted, an immortal office worker who has seen far too much of what people do to each other. Then, more recently, he turned up somewhere nobody predicted, in animation, in music culture, in short-form video. Viewers who had never heard the name found themselves pausing on a group of tall figures dressed in black robes and asking the obvious question, wait, that is not a costume somebody invented last year. Is that a real tradition? It is. And according to reports, that recognition traveled far beyond Korea, carried by clips, captions, and comment threads. Millions of people wanted to know who this figure was and why he looked so composed, doing something so terrifying. Which brings us to the part of the legend that has aged the best, and the reason it keeps coming back. Jeoseung Saja is not the villain of the story. He is only the last stop on a road everybody eventually walks. He guides the soul out of this world and toward the next, past a gate that most versions never fully describe. Some tellings place a river at the crossing. Others describe a king seated and waiting on the far side of it. A king who keeps records more detailed and considerably less forgiving than any tax office ever assembled. The messenger himself claims none of that authority. He escorts, he is patient, he is silent, and he is always on time. Maybe that is why the image has lasted 5 centuries without ever quite falling out of fashion or use. Because it was never really about fear. Underneath the black robe, it was about a very human wish. The wish that even death has rules, that there is procedure, record-keeping, and someone answerable for doing it properly. In a world where so much arrives without warning or explanation, that is a surprisingly comforting thought to hold. So the next time you notice a figure in a black hat standing a little too still in the moonlight, try not to panic. He is probably not there for you. Judging by the old stories, he may only be there for your bags. That last line has since taken on a second life as the joke behind Saja, a small meme project built on the character. No studio affiliation, no movie rights, just an old story that has refused for 500 years to stay buried. 5 centuries on, the messenger is still walking, still carrying the same scroll, still perfectly on schedule. Perhaps we keep retelling him because we would rather be met than simply taken. If this story stayed with you, subscribe and stay a while. There is more of this older, quieter world to walk through, and I would be glad to have you along.